All right, what a time in Bay Area sports. The Giants win again, and we can talk 49ers now in what is the most important week leading up to the NFL draft by far. By next week, the 49ers' work will be done. Then they just have to pick, right? But the research is what is the meat and potatoes here. And the most 30 visits, those are the visits allowed to the team facility. You get 30 of them, are going to be happening this week for the 49ers. We already have quite the extensive list. We have 14 officially confirmed 30 visits for the 49ers. And I think by Thursday, Friday, there's going to be a much longer list. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned here. Know when I'm coming live with some of these updates, because we're going to be able to talk about a lot of 49ers prospects. The most correlated information to whom the 49ers actually pick is the official 30 visit list. That has been, it's never going to be foolproof, right? It's not like they're going to be drafting all 30 players that they host. But when we look at the commonalities between the players whom the 49ers have picked over the years, it is that more often than not, more often than any other indicator, they have taken a 30 visit list. That's the way that I'd put it. The most recently reported one is Chris Paul Jr. Matt Barrows today reported that. Somebody, I think, also reported that either right before or right after Matt. But we got it from multiple sources. Linebacker out of Ole Miss, who actually started his career at Arkansas. Those of you who follow where the 49ers played in college before joining the NFL will know that Dre Greenlaw played his college football at Arkansas. Chris Paul Jr., linebacker, was all over the field last year. He's the kind of guy, he played with the radio or green dot on his helmet, no radio in his helmet in college, but in the NFL, that would be his duty as the middle linebacker. But he was the guy that was delivering all the signals on the field for Ole Miss, and he is one big spark plug of energy. The one issue with Chris Paul Jr., they call him Pooh Paul, by the way, but the one issue with him is that he's a little bit smaller. He'll check in at about 220. Now, I don't think that's the biggest deal in the world, because linebackers have downsized over the course of the past decade in the NFL. We're no longer in the Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis era, where those two guys dominated because they were 240 plus and they were running around like they're about 205, 210 pounds. Chris Paul Jr., he's going to be one of those smaller linebackers from 215 to 220, which I think is run of the mill these days in the NFL. It means that he's got the ability to change direction and cover, which is extremely important. But the feistiness that he brings to the table in terms of run defense, I think can be very beneficial to the 49ers. He overshoots some plays because he is so hungry, and that could lead to a problem in and of itself. But I think that you'd rather have a guy with the extremely high motor, which is what Chris Paul Jr. has, than a guy that doesn't naturally have that. You could always scale it back. You could always coach him into a little bit more discipline. And it is not going to be a first-round draft pick, right? This is going to be somebody that you bring in, just like almost every draft pick, on a developmental basis. You need more depth at the linebacker position. And the 49ers obviously wanted Dre Greenlaw back. They couldn't get Dre Greenlaw back. So they're very likely going to be perusing the draft market. And one of the linebackers visiting San Francisco is Chris Paul Jr. They've met with other linebackers at places like the Combine. They have scouted other linebackers pro days. But this is the only linebacker so far that we have documented with a 30 visit to San Francisco. Other players who have visited the facility: Kyle Williams, the receiver out of Washington State, looking at him as a second or third round pick. Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. This was Chris Paul Jr.'s teammate. So I'm sure when they're scouting Paul and when they're scouting Nolan, they get a good look at the other guy, especially since they're both on the same side of the ball. So you're watching how that Ole Miss defense works in conjunction with itself. And both of these football players were part of that defense for Lane Kiffin over there at Ole Miss. Nolan is expected to be a first-round pick, and I talked about him this morning. That might be the closest that you can get to a ready-made, three-down defensive tackle, starting caliber player from day one, where the 49ers are picking at number 11. Mason Graham out of Michigan, is in all likelihood going to be gone off the board at number 11. I think that Walter Nolan will probably be there based on what we're gathering, and he shoots the run extremely well. He's got pass rushing skills. He had over 10 sacks last year for Ole Miss. Formerly of Texas A&M, I mean, at this point, you almost ask yourself, what's wrong with the guys who haven't transferred? Because so many of these guys have transferred. John Lynch, not so jokingly, has said over the past couple of years that early in his tenure as the 49ers GM, when they're preparing for the NFL draft, they would always put a red flag next to a guy who had transferred back in 2017, 2018, and they would look deeper into it. And they'd say, what's wrong with this guy? Why did he transfer? Did he not get along with the coaching staff? What happened? Did he run away from competition? Now it's the opposite. Now the 49ers put a red flag next to a player who hasn't transferred because it's so rare. I think almost the entire 2024 draft class of the 49ers transferred. There might have been one player who hadn't transferred over the course of his college career. So anyway, Walter Nolan, great example of a player who has transferred, and it's no longer a negative in the eyes of the 49ers or in the eyes of the rest of the NFL. It can't be, because college football's gone crazy. You saw the Tennessee quarterback the other day wanted $4 million. Tennessee just decided to cut ties with him. And I don't really blame the QB. I blame the fact that it's like the Wild West out there. You've got players with a ton of leverage on their sides looking to get more money, and they're not really contractually tied to a limit here because there's no year put on any of these contracts, right? The money is there through the NIL, but the term limit is not. And in the NFL, if you sign for $5 million a year over 3 years, you know that the team has control over 3 years. In college football, the team doesn't really have control. It's crazy to me right now. There's no fixed end to any of these contracts. So it's perpetual free agency in college football. And these players are going to be pushing the limits up until teams stiffen up and say, no, we're not going to pay you $4 million a year. You're not a good enough player for that. We don't want to deal with you. Get lost. You can go sign somewhere else. That's what Tennessee did with their quarterback. And, I think that more college teams are going to have to do that. But I think in general, college football is going to need to establish a salary cap. They're going to have to collectively bargain probably to get to that point to reach an area where this is a little bit more rational. I mean, it's just crazy in college football. But the transfers will keep on happening until then, right? Because if players are not contractually tied to a team the way that they are in the NFL, then of course they're going to be shopping around for the best offer, the best situation on a year-by-year basis. It's led to a lot of chaos in college football. All right, so we've said Kyle Williams, receiver out of Washington State, has visited the 49ers. Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss, has visited San Francisco. Mikael Williams, edge rusher out of Georgia, on the 30-visit list. He is also projected to be a first-round draft pick. Omar Norman Lott, speaking of Tennessee, this is a defensive lineman who I think has versatility to play all across the defensive line, but a much more raw prospect. Somebody who is not going to be a first-round pick. I think you could probably grab Omar Norman Lott in the third or the fourth round. And this is a great example of this draft. We're a week and a half away. Make sure that you have the ground rules of the draft in your head. It's not heavy on elite blue chip talent. It is heavy on quality talent in the middle. So anything between, I would say typically pick 15, middle of the first round, pick 15, 16 to maybe even the fifth round. There are a lot of good players in this draft. They're not blue chip players, but they are good players. And within that subset of players, it's especially deep at the defensive line, particularly if we want to zoom in one step further, defensive tackle. So somebody like Omar Norman Lott, I just have him classified as a defensive lineman, a general classification, because I think that the 49ers like this adaptability. Projected to go in the third or fourth round, hungry player, is a great example of some of the value that you can find, especially at the defensive line position later in the draft. Harold Fannin Jr., tight end out of Bowling Green. Now this is a record breaker. We're going through the 30 visit list right now for the 49ers. Harold Fannin Jr., 49% of Bowling Green's offense went through him this past year. When you look at the 3 tight ends the 49ers have brought in or plan to bring in on these 30 visits, it's Harold Fannin Jr., Jalen Conyers, who's out of Texas Tech, and Jackson Hawes, who started his career at Yale and then went to Georgia Tech. 2 of those 3 are big-time ball tight ends. That means they are playmakers. Jackson Hawes is a blocker, so it's like Luke Farrell. You could even compare him to Kyle Juszczyk because he's an Ivy Leaguer, played 4 seasons at Yale. Jackson Hawes, though, would be looked at as a blocker in the NFL level. But Harold Fannin Jr. and Jalen Conyers, these are both players who I think the 49ers are looking at as potential Deebo Samuel replacements to at least a certain degree. We need to stop focusing and obsessing on exact position and realize that the 49ers don't obsess on that or over that as an offense. Kyle Shanahan is going to be lining players up at every which spot. In fact, the weapons that see the most time for the 49ers are the guys who can play multiple positions. That's what can compromise and bend a defense. I think Harold Fannin Jr. and Jalen Conyers are both great examples of potentially adaptable weapons for the 49ers, tight ends who are going to be visiting or have visited San Francisco so far on this 30 list. Then there is Shamar Stewart, maybe the most polarizing player on this entire list. Edge rusher out of Texas A&M, one of the most physically gifted players in the entire draft. I mean, his numbers are absolutely absurd when we looked at what he was able to do at the NFL Combine. We made a whole video on it, talking about how the proliferation of athleticism at the edge rusher position has completely changed the game. And it changed the way the teams scout these offensive linemen as well, because they need to find counters to these extremely talented defensive linemen. But when you look at Jalen Conyers, when you look at Shamar Stewart, he just hadn't produced at the level that you would expect him to statistically when you consider how athletic he is. So, there's a whole camp of people that say, I just want traits, draft traits, even if it, takes a first round pick, draft these elite traits and you could develop Shamar Stewart. But, I see the other side with equal merit saying, wait, this guy has not produced on the football field. He gets gobbled up by blocks quite a bit, especially considering how strong and how athletic he is. Is this really somebody that you want to invest a first-round pick in? I was talking about this with Mike the other day because look at the way that this is structured. We have to think about the business of the league when we consider the NFL draft. Anybody that you pick in the first round, you're going to have 5 years of team control, but only 4 years of relatively inexpensive team control, right? You have 4 years under contract plus the 5th-year option, which is never cheap. So unless the guy is a star, you can't really think about that 5th year as too big of an asset. You're thinking about cost-controlled, efficient production that you can get from the draft. Think 4 years of team control. So what if Shamar Stewart takes 3 seasons to find his potential because he's such a raw prospect? What if this is a project? Well, all of a sudden, you're looking at 2 years of team control at best with Shamar Stewart playing good football for you. So you have to calculate how long is it going to take him to figure things out? Because if he's giving you college level production, which wasn't a lot, which was only a handful of sacks in college, if that's what he's giving you in the pros, I don't know if it's worth a first round pick. Now, there will be some team that bets on the traits and says, hey, if we plug him into our system, he was running something that was different in college. There'll be some team, I'm sure, relatively high in the draft that will decide to pull that trigger. But I think that it's obvious that the 49ers are interested. They've invited him on a 30 visit. I don't know if that's the best move for San Francisco. Maybe they see something in him that suggests that the development will be very quick. Maybe they think that Chris Kaserik can get the most out of him and those traits immediately. But you have to really evaluate this on the scale of the rookie contract. You're trying to get that efficient play within that 4-year window, and any player with a long developmental track in front of him, it might not be the best use of that first-round draft pick. Anyway, Shamar Stewart, there's a reason why that's a polarizing prospect, because of the potential athletically, but also because of the relative lack of production so far in college. Then there is Kobe Bryant, the cornerback out of Kansas. He is scheduled to go, or expected to go, in the later rounds, 6th round pick. So there's a lot of talk about the 49ers potentially drafting a cornerback early. By that, I mean first round. Some of the mock drafts have had that. I don't buy it, because that is not a way that San Francisco has acted before in the NFL draft. The highest pick they've ever used on a corner was Renardo Green last year, number 61. But I could see them being very interested in cornerbacks a little bit later. They have hosted 2 cornerbacks on these 30 visits, Kobe Bryant from Kansas and Quincy Riley from Louisville. Both of those guys are not expected to go until the 3rd round or later. That would make a whole lot more sense based on the 49ers track record of drafting cornerbacks, not quarterbacks, cornerbacks. This show is brought to you by Mando. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use the code Lombardi at shopmando.com. That is SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. That link is going to be in the description. You can go check out the link that I think probably automatically inputs our code in the description. Again, code Lombardi at shopmando.com. As we go through this list, I just went through the 2 cornerbacks, Kobe Bryant and Quincy Riley. Then there is Miles Frazier, guard out of LSU. Now, this is interesting because he's expected to go around the 3rd round. Last year, the 49ers used the 3rd round pick on an offensive guard, Dominic Pooney. And if you had to redraft that 2024 draft, I think Dominic Pooney would go in the 1st. And that's how well he played. If you can get a day 1 starter out of any draft at the offensive line, that's 1st round value. Given how the short supply of quality offensive linemen in this league, it's crazy right now, right? We are seeing the defensive linemen outnumber the offensive linemen when it comes to quality by quite a bit. So you're always desperate for a quality offensive lineman to come aboard. And I do think that Dominic Pooney was exactly that coming out of the 3rd round. Can somebody like Miles Frazier, 30 visited for the 49ers out of LSU, bring similar value? We'll see. They're obviously looking to continue that pipeline of offensive linemen, especially these interior guys coming in. You lost Aaron Banks. You're going to have to figure what you're doing out at left guard, and hell, even center. I mean, people are talking about Jake Brendel. I know he's still under contract for 2 more years. I think the 49ers it would behoove them to draft a center who they can turn into a longer-term developmental player. We got to see where Drake Nugent's at in his development. He's the undrafted free agent out of Michigan who was an all Big Ten player on a national championship team. He was on the 49ers practice squad last year, but you just have to keep the pipeline of talent flowing if you're the 49ers. And then we get to Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. He's expected to be a 2nd-round pick. 49ers have also hosted him. That is a total of 14 players that I went through, including Chris Paul Jr., who we talked about at the top of the show, the linebacker, who some people are comparing to Dre Greenlaw since he's got some Arkansas background, but he's not as big as Dre Greenlaw. He's as feisty as Dre Greenlaw, but he's not quite as heavy as Dre, somewhere between 215, 220. By the way, Chris Paul Jr. expected to go in the 3rd or the 4th round. The 49ers have met with him on 2 separate occasions, the 30 visit plus a meeting at the East-West Shrine Bowl with Chris Paul Jr. So that's why this is the most important week for the draft. The biggest clump of 30 visits is expected to happen this week for the 49ers. And these are the ones that are most tied to some kind of predictive value regarding who they actually will pick once they are on the clock come April. Mike asking me about Tatum Bethune because I was talking about Chris Paul Jr. at the top of the show. Tatum Bethune was a 7th-round pick out of Florida State last year. Could this be the year that he emerges into a more prominent linebacker role? Possibly. Same with D. Winters. They drafted him a couple years ago, 6th-round pick out of TCU. Jalen Graham, 7th-round pick out of Purdue in that same draft with D. Winters. They're going to have all the opportunities in the world over the course of this offseason. And they're going to compete probably with a rookie whom the 49ers bring in with one of their 11 picks. They wanted to keep Dre Greenlaw, but obviously not badly enough to pay more than significantly more than Denver. I think ultimately they offered a tiny bit more, maybe over just 1 year. Denver offered the 3-year contract to Dre Greenlaw, but it was somebody who the 49ers wanted just to have some stability, some veteran leadership at an important position. But it obviously wasn't at the priority level to have to break the bank totally for Dre Greenlaw, a player with limited availability over the course of the past couple seasons. So the 49ers are going to be turning in-house to younger players, and maybe they're going to try to bring a draftee in-house to fortify that competition at the linebacker position. Oh, Mike is asking me, is Tatum Bethune the one that didn't transfer? Yes. No, Tatum Bethune did transfer, Mike. Yeah. Tatum Bethune went from UCF to Florida State. We're talking about players who didn't transfer in the 49ers 2024 draft class. The one who didn't transfer was Renardo Green. And, this is really interesting, and I think it's relevant right now. The 49ers looked at Renardo Green, and they actually decided that the fact he didn't transfer, unlike everybody else in their 2024 draft class, was a big thumbs up to his story and his character, because it was tough at Florida State. They moved him to safety, and then they moved him back to cornerback, and he had every reason to jump ship and go somewhere else because of how they were playing this yo-yo game with him. But he decided to stay with the Seminoles, and it paid off because he shut down all those first-round picks, right? Brian Thomas Jr., he shut down Malik Neighbors. He shut down Ricky Pearsall. Speaking of Ricky Pearsall, we have something to show you. Ricky Pearsall starting a YouTube channel, and he's got a little trailer for his YouTube channel. So we can watch that right here. I decided to turn off the audio so we can just talk over it. Ricky Pearsall's vlog number 1. Look, he's lifting this offseason, getting some of the footwork in this offseason. Looks like a nice car. Getting some golfing in this offseason. Isaac Guerendo, fellow 2024 rookie. Looked like some good food there as well. Now, see who Ricky Pearsall's working with. I know I covered this earlier this week, but there's Jacob Cowing. We didn't have video, but now we have video of it. First, the jet ski, of course. Looked like he was in Miami. We're going to have video very shortly of Ricky Pearsall catching passes from the man himself. There's Brock Purdy. So that answers the question. Purdy did golf with Pearsall and Jacob Cowing, but we were wondering if Purdy threw to Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing in Arizona. And Ricky now has his nice little logo as well. And to verify that Brock Purdy did throw to Ricky Pearsall, we could pause it. We went a little too far. There he is. That's Purdy. Maybe that was even in Jacksonville. That could have been in Jacksonville, actually. It looks a little bit more lush than Arizona. Purdy works out in Jacksonville in the offseason. So maybe Ricky Pearsall went and visited him there. And that would make sense because, yeah, he could be back at Florida to watch his Gators, who won the national championship. And, yeah, he is back at Florida there at the end. So I think I put the puzzle together. Ricky Pearsall worked out with Brock Purdy in Jacksonville because that's where Purdy works out in the offseason with Will Hewlett and Tom Gormelli. And then Ricky Pearsall drove down the road to Gainesville, where he was able to enjoy the Florida March Madness run. And obviously, Florida ended up getting it done. Ricky Pearsall, too, transferred from ASU to Florida. So there was the Herm Edwards connection for the 49ers at ASU, the Brandon Ayuk connection at ASU for Ricky Pearsall, but then he went to the East Coast, played in the SEC, and he paid a visit back to his alma mater. Go check out Ricky's YouTube channel. I think that'll be cool. These days, I was just talking about this before I went on air, but these players, it's so important to create your own brand these days. Your own brand is so powerful. This YouTube channel right here, right? We didn't have this a few years ago. It started in 2021. So glad that we started the YouTube channel in 2021. You have to think about it in terms of somebody in the media, but you also have to think about it in terms of somebody that's playing in the NFL, because your playing career is not going to last forever. Even the longest career is 2 decades, right? That's a really long career, by the way. But after those 2 decades, you're in your 40s. Still have a lot of life ahead of you. So the personal brand is a big thing to do. And Ricky Pearsall has obviously begun that journey with his YouTube channel. I'll be able to check in on Ricky and see what he's doing over the course of these off seasons. And hey, maybe even some good in-season content from Ricky Pearsall will be on its way. Anyway, this sets the table for the draft. I'm ready to answer any questions because we are a week and a half out. It's about to get real. This is the biggest moment of the offseason for the 49ers. This week in particular is massive because they're going to be collecting some of the make or break intel on these players during the 30 visits, which have been the most correlated piece of information to whom the 49ers actually pick. I will take some of your questions wading into the comment section, and let's get going with it. Brad looks a little buff, or Brock looks a little buff. Brad Graham, he's buff too, former lineman. I read that as Brad. I'm like, oh, it's because Brad is commenting. I don't know if Brad is also buff, but yeah, Brock Purdy in the offseason, he gets a chance to add a little strength. Usually the way it works, you lift during the season, but you're also nursing injuries, also having to study a lot of film during the season. So you try to build up some strength in the offseason because it's hard to maintain a lot of that muscle throughout the 3 or 4 month marathon that is an NFL season. Thanks to all of our subscribers. I believe that Dave is a subscriber. I think there's a new little logo next to his name. We have opened up membership. I think it's memberships, actually. Subscribe to the San Francisco Standard. You become a member of this YouTube channel. I think we have like 20 members already. We just launched that the other day. So thank you to those of you who have joined. You get your own custom little emoji/bitmoji as part of that. Then you get a lot more, but you're supporting the channel, which is what we want. There's going to be members meetups and all this good stuff that we'll do through the process. So everybody, you can go ahead and join YouTube David Lombardi membership on your YouTube page. I'm not sure if you can do it on mobile. I'm guessing you can, but I've tried it on desktop and it does work through there. Oh, there's a link right here. Mike put it up. The Lombardi membership link is right here. So you can go ahead and click that in the chat. And Mike, as you could see, he's got little member icon next to his name as well. No updates right now on Brock Purdy's contract. We have a question about Brock Purdy's contract. If and when we do get some updates, we'll bring them to you. The offseason program for the 49ers starts in a week on April 21st. I'll actually be in the facility on the 21st. That's going to be the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch press conference to get things started off. Brock said in an interview that 40% of the time he cannot see his receivers. You don't think this is a problem? No, I don't think this is a problem because it's an issue that every single NFL quarterback deals with. These guys are not playing a video game. It is not an overhead camera. You are back there in the pocket, having to throw the ball in generally 2.5 seconds or less. Pass rush is coming in. You are throwing to spots in the NFL. You're relying on your film study in the NFL. You talk to any quarterback, they will tell you that they are often throwing to receiver they can't see. That's what makes this the hardest position to play in professional sports. If you don't do your homework before you take that field as a quarterback, if you don't know where certain guys are going to be, where openings are going to be, where defenders are going to be in the context of certain defenses and certain plays, you will be exposed. The fact that Brock Purdy has been the most efficient quarterback in football over the course of the past 3 years is a testament to the knowledge that he has of the offense, of opposing defenses, of his receivers. And it's a testament to his reflexes, his arm, his ability to play the position. It's not easy. So when Brock said that, he wasn't saying I'm the only guy that can't see downfield. He's saying this is how hard it is to play the position. And a lot of armchair GMs and armchair head coaches think that this is just like a game of Madden, where you could see the whole field and there's a triangle above your receiver's head and you hit the triangle on your video game controller. Sorry, it's not like that. It's a lot harder than that. And I think the fact that Purdy has made it look relatively easy, given how difficult it is why the 49ers are so enamored with him and why they're going to pay him this offseason. Here's a former quarterback. As a former quarterback with an offensive line that was all 3 to 5 inches taller than me, it's not a problem. You have to know the play, scheme, and defensive pre-snap read. Brock is truly great at doing this. Trust me, even if you're 6'7" as a quarterback, if you don't know those three things, the play, the scheme, and a pre-snap read on a defense, you will be exposed. The windows in this league close too quickly. It's not college football. In college football, you could sit back there, you can run around, your athletes are going to be better, especially if you're playing Furman or some school like that, right? Your athletes are going to be better, so you're going to have 7 to 8 yards of separation routinely in college football, and all you have to do is hit the broadside of a barn with your throw. In the NFL, everybody is good. Everybody was the best player or the second best player on their college team. It's all refined down to the inch, right? So anticipatory throwing to throw a guy open is mandatory. Hitting the window on time, right? If you release a throw on a quick slant against a zone defense at the 1.6 second mark and it works, there's a good chance that it wouldn't have worked at the 1.7 second mark. So if there's a little double clutch on the release, there's some uncertainty. If you had to scan the defense for an extra 1/10 of a second, that could be the difference between a completion and potentially a touchdown or a ball being batted away or even an interception in the NFL. So sometimes this is why the scouting of the quarterback position sees so many errors, because it's so hard to quantify how a player is going to do timing-wise, how quickly a quarterback is going to be able to release the football and play on schedule, on time. It's so difficult to quantify that, so people fall back on physical measurements. They go, oh, okay, he's 6'5". Let's draft him over the guy that's 6'1". Because there's no good way to tell if the guy that's 6'5" is going to be able to process, read, and react. That means look at the defense and throw and deliver more quickly than the guy who's 6'1". So teams end up erring on the measurable that they can confidently glean, and that is the height. But Brock Purdy has shown that he can process better than almost every 6'5" guy that we see in the NFL. All right, great stuff. We got something coming. Oh, we got new members coming in. Stacy, new member. Thank you. Dave. Okay, so Dave, new member. That's where the logo came from. And the voice of the Niner faithful, new members. So 3 new members today. Thanks to all of you for joining during this show. Members will get priority in chats, and there's different tiers of the membership. But all of you, rest assured that you're doing a great job supporting the channel, and we really, really appreciate it. Lombardi yourself says thank you from the other room. I think it's time to go eat some molten lava chocolate cake. Thanks to our members. This has been fun. It's the biggest week of the year for the 49ers as far as the draft goes. The 30 visits coming in. Hopefully that was a good, comprehensive review of whom the 49ers will be hosting. And yes, I will be doing a mock before the draft, the mock draft. I'm only doing one because I think it's cheap to do multiple mock drafts, because then you go back and you say, well, I was right. Yeah, in one of your 7 mock drafts, you might have gotten one of the players right. I try to be accurate here, and I understand the draft is impossible to fully predict, but I want to give the best idea of what the 49ers might do. So be on the lookout. The mock draft is indeed coming this week, and in honesty's sake, or for honesty's sake, I'm only doing one of them. So stay tuned for that. All right, everybody, thanks a lot. We will talk to you very soon.